Oh, here we go again. I think I mentioned this at the end of 2023. See, I'll tell y'all stories about how I grew up, life lessons, and try to keep names out of it. Because it's about getting the lesson, not being in people's business. By having to know names and calling people out. See, we get too comfortable with this getting online and oh my God, such and such needs to be exposed for being bad this and bad that. Oh my God, we gotta call out such and such on A, B, C, and D behavior. The steam in this laundry room of what I call the World Wide Web has a stench to it, and one that needs to be squashed. Again, I don't have children, but what I've always said is that if it ever come to a point where certain things happen to me, like my husband died, I'm of greater means than I ever was, that I would protect that at all times if I were ever able to have one. I know this has been making the rounds. I've seen this before and I wasn't going to make a big deal out of it. Here's the thing. We really don't know what's going on, but I have no problem at all with the people leaving comments and taking sides. Because Brian Mcknight and his elder kids coming out and jostling back and forth created the environment for people to take sides. For reasons that we'll never fully know. Because you can't fully know the way a person is in private. Because most people aren't going to tell you their whole life. There's such thing as oversharing. But most people aren't going to tell you their whole life. But for reasons unknown to us, Brian Mcknight has decided that his first 4 children, all adults, are evil. And that he just wants nothing else to do with them. They are what he called products of sin. I'm not going to make this biblical or preachy or get into what any of this means. So naturally, the people clap back. There are 2 arguments that come, one that defends his children and one that defends him. And let me tell you why both of them are true. I'll start with the one that defends his children. They didn't ask to be born, right? And ideally, when you have kids, you want to have the best relationship that you can have with them. And this thing where he's now trying to pretend they don't exist, that's not how that works. It's one thing if you choose to cut someone off. But to say, oh, that person doesn't exist, that's a lie because you know they exist. Especially when you're famous from time to time, people are going to throw that in your face. You can cut them off from your legacy, meaning you can cut them out of your will, depending on the state. You can cut them out of any assets, any gains when you die. You can cut them out of your legacy, but you can never cut them out of your bloodline and DNA. No matter how you view that child, what went down and why, you won't ever be able to cut that access of them off. Now, here's why Brian Mcknight is right, and this one is hard for me. Had a conversation with my father, and I won't get into detail because I've told y'all this before. And I told him, other than one of your brothers and one of your sisters, I'll pray for the souls of the rest of your immediate family, but I don't want anything to do with them. I'm not that significant, so no one's going to go and research this and find out how true it is or isn't. But the reason I have no condemnation for those kids is because they didn't ask to be born, but I have no condemnation either for Brian Mcknight. Because it is highly possible, and I believe he cut them off to protect his peace. See, it's easy to embarrass him because he's an award-winning artist that everyone knows and has some kind of renown. Notice I'm not going to make the assumption that they think that they're owed something. But grasp what I'm trying to say right now. I made a video either on this channel or on my channel, The Evergreen Wave, in which I stated, you got to do sometimes what you have to do to protect your peace. And sometimes protecting your peace means that someone who shares the DNA got to go. Because if they're making you miserable, why would you sit up and put up with it? If you're making each other miserable, why would you put up with it? It's like every time with this situation, I've seen this, I think, a few times. Either his kids will say something first or he'll say something first, and there's back and forth clap back. It were me, I would tell both sides, deal with this stuff in private, because it's sad to see the disintegration between a parent and child relationship. But those kids are grown enough to give him grandchildren, and I believe one or more already has. And I get people's opinion. How could you not want to see your own blood, your own flesh and blood? Those grandbabies are innocent in this. But it's possible, due to the things he has achieved, that there could be some entitlement in this. You can't make people be a parent if they don't want to. No more than you can force a grown child to see that they're grown and on their own. Again, with all of this, we don't know what's going on. What I believe for both sides is that you need to handle this off camera. Handle this off the internet. Because this is a sad state of affairs right here. Everybody online don't need to know everything going on in your life offline.